Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and deceased. It is I, and Mighty Sophia, here to break down for you guys the latest episode of The Walking Dead. We are going to be recollecting the events of the episode Remember. So, spoiler alert before we dive into the mad thick of things, as I will be bearing all in this review. And just so you guys know, Bates Motel is going to be returning March 9th, and I will be back to review the third season of that series. So stay tuned for that. Mondays are going to get crazy, and Sundays with The Walking Dead are only going to continue to get crazier. This week was, well, more or less a breath of fresh air compared to where we've seen the group at previously, but at the same time equally disconcerting for reasons that all of us as seasoned veteran watchers of The Walking Dead should realize. So let's talk about all this business, okay? And as I always say, if there's anything that I fail to address or break down in this review, I would be more than happy if you guys took it to the comments, kept the discussion going. That is life. That is what makes this good and fun. So, a very fascinating episode, and I was incredibly excited for this one. We left off last week, of course, with the group entering the not-so-pearly gates of Alexandria, but nonetheless entering this new place of seeming possible refuge, something that the group, of course, meets with great skepticism, but also sort of a hope that maybe there's a life for them here. There's always that enduring, persisting, nagging sense of a need to belong, really, that I think pervades everyone's lives and needs throughout the show. And so we got to see those things come to fruition in this episode, getting to see everybody more or less settle into this new environment, and ultimately there wasn't any one big catastrophic, cataclysmic breakdown. At least not yet, although the note that the episode left off on was a wee bit on the ominous side, but kind of ominous in a way that I like, because we are reminded of the incredible strength and resilience of this group and how that informs the way that they approach this whole secluded, gated community that has endured in the midst of all the insanity around them. Not so much endured as simply existed, at least in the eyes of our survivors, because they have been on the open road. They have been broken and ripped from their homes time and time again. And finally, at last, above all else, they have each other as family, that core unit. And that is truly the only semblance of a home that they've had. And it's been miraculously enough to sustain them. And it's been so incredible for us as viewers to get to watch this relationship, this kind of familial bond form between, like Deanna had noted, between such different individuals. They're all in this cohesive unit that now we kind of fear what exactly is going to happen to them as they become assimilated into this society, or will they continue to become assimilated into this society, as it seems like Rick is kind of pushing them to do and Carol is sort of pushing them to do. But everybody, what's so fascinating about this episode is that we get to see how everybody has a different angle with approaching this entire situation. And I have to point out, even before I talk about everything else that happened in the episode leading up to this, I have to point out what Rick said at the very end when he comes strutting down the stairs in his old cop duds. You know, that was quite an uncanny moment. I mean, this was the episode that was dominated by Rick's freaking suaveness. I'm just saying, time and time again, it's not that the beard is not the source of an awesome and mighty power. A good beard is indeed hard to find, but it was also wonderful to find again his face and for Michonne to meet that face for the first time, in fact. Pretty crazy stuff, you know, unprecedented territory for some members of the Ricktatorship. But so he says when he you know, I think that it's Daryl and Carol, and I forget who else is around when he makes this statement, but he says that if the rest of this community can't make it, they'll just take the town themselves. I mean, this would certainly not be the first place that they've done that kind of thing before. You know, we think about what happened at the prison and Herschel's farm and Woodbury, all these disparate situations that kind of inform the way that they could potentially proceed if shit hits the fan. But the fact that he says that made me think, you know, it definitely makes a lot of sense that there is an incredible abiding sense of skepticism that everybody is experiencing in some way or another about becoming a part of this community. Sorry, I'm a little nasal today. I apologize for that. But we see that the group is uncertain about coming into this place where the people are weak. They are complacent in this self-sustaining community. They want for nothing in this place. They have plumbing and electricity and utilities, food, and everything that you could possibly want, and everything that none of the people in the group have seen in months and years. And this is not life or normalcy to them any longer, and it's something that is inevitably taken for granted by the people that have had these things since the start. So it's, you know, the two roads that diverge in the yellow wood, and now they have crossed again with the people that have been in this place, in this little suburban paradise since the beginning, and then everyone else who got thrown into the fray since the beginning. And then all of this begs the question of, is the idea that these hardened survivors could create the kind of society that would be best for, like, future societies to stem from? Would it be the society of people that really have no idea of what's truly out there, or the people who do? You know, and there's a lot of moral ambiguity that we have to face in the midst of this. One interesting storytelling device that we had in this episode was Deanna's video interviews with all the different members of Rick's group, and kind of seeing how everybody approaches things differently. Of course, Rick himself was really kicking his heels into the dirt about this whole idea of Alexandria. So suffice it to say, he's very upfront with Deanna about the reality of trying to bring people into this community to strengthen it from the inside, and he's very upfront with her in saying that that's a real bad plan there. Not to say that Deanna isn't smart. I mean, I think that she's quite intelligent and capable, having previously been a congresswoman, and insisting that who you were before all of this went down directly informs who you are now. And that's something that is kind of a foreign concept to everybody who's been out on the road, where all these roles kind of, the lines become grayed and blurred between who you are, who you were, who you could be. Again, it's all about survival. And survival isn't really anything that the people in this community seem to know about on the surface. And Rick tells them that they are measured by people from the outside according to what those people from the outside can take from them. So he's pretty much saying, you know, I could be, like me and my people, we could be those people that only want to take from you. Is this really the way that you grow a community? And I think in saying that, he's trying to test the waters to really get to the heart of what this community is about. Should they consider even being a part of it? And I really like that everybody is staying together in this one house at first, you know, all in this core unit, trying to feel their way around. Everybody's exploring, testing the waters, taking the temperature, trying to get a read on things. And it's really sad to kind of see how alienated Daryl is from the overall group right now. Of course, he and Carol still have their fun banter together, but he will most certainly be the last to take a shower, if he even does. Probably Carol will as she said, have to hose him down in his sleep. Because there ain't no way, because it's a vulnerability factor for Daryl. Like, for him, he's not going to dress up the issue. He doesn't trust this place. How can he really trust any place? For him, it's his family, and that's as far as it goes. There is no place, there is no community, there is no semblance of civilization that is going to make this guy tidy up and trim his bangs. Like, it's just not happening. And that is quite clearly contrasted with the approach of Carol, who we see in her video interview that she is, like, romanticizing her days as a housewife and preparing dinner for Ed, and immediately all of us think back to how abusive he was from the start, from what little we actually saw in the very first season. But this was not a good dude. Not the kind of guy that you would feel awesome playing housewife for in any circumstance. And as a survivor of abuse, Carol she takes a very interesting angle with this whole coming into the community. She wants to place herself in a position of importance where she can get a feel for what the community is really like, and emphasizing that she's such a people person and she just wants to do whatever she can, and we just, with the whole smiley, preppy, she comes out with her nice collared shirt and sweater, like, she is ready to play the game. She's gonna play the system to whatever outcome. She's ready for it all, and that ingenuity is something that we have seen so strongly in her character in the past season or so, and that's been really fabulous. And I like that. I like this kind of approach that she's taking. Then we see that Michonne really eagerly wants to be a part of this community, but not merely to just be here. She wants a role. And Deanna, as the community leader, is the one who provides jobs. You know, it's a very tight little economy that they got running around there. So she wants to be able to be industrious, to be of importance, and to establish a life for herself by working, by contributing. Again, I think something that really pervades the consciousness of everybody in the group is the fact that they don't want to get soft. They don't want to take the easy way out of everything that they have endured. You know, this is it's still survival for them, because now they have to survive this culture shock. And then whatever may transpire when the next internal or external or both kinds of threats come, you know, inevitably we're going to see bits of both, and as to what's going to be the most explosive, you have to find out. But, yeah, so we've got, like, Daryl on one end of the spectrum who refuses to assimilate, who refuses to play the game, and then Carol, who is on target, all set, all smiles as soon as she's walking in the gate, even when she's trying to work her way around her gargantuan gun and just, like, delicately place it atop the the tray of weapons. Now, something disconcerting, of course, is the fact that Rick's little mixer gun, the one that he put in the blender outside before they initially entered, comes back around and finds that his gun is gone, which could mean a variety of things, but none of them terribly ideal. The fact that his weapon is missing indicates that something wicked this way comes, but we all kind of expected that. Like, this is one of Rick's litmus tests before he enters any kind of community. It happened for Terminus as well, when he buried his weapons up on the side of the hill, as you will recall. So that was kind of an echo of what he did previously, which I think is a very smart choice, and we'll see exactly what's going to come from that. And I think that the absence of his weapon is going to inform the way that he views and perceives things as we go forward. We also had a really cool moment with Carl, seeing him interact with other kids his own age who are presenting him with all these options of teenager things to do, like playing pool or video games, and he chokes up. He freezes. This is all so foreign and bizarre to him, to the point that he doesn't really feel like he can assimilate either. He's not quite on the Daryl end of the spectrum, although in terms of shagginess of the mane. They're definitely on that side. But he expresses to his father that these people are weak, straight up. He doesn't feel like he can relate to them because they don't share the same experiences. They don't realize how strange and unreal and surreal this little under the dome life they have is. The fact that this one kid says that his dad is at work so they could go play pool, and it just every single piece is, it's a culture that Carl never really got to grow up with. I mean, how old was he when all of this started? I remember how dinky of a child he looked at the beginning, and they're a few years into the game, so, but yeah, I think that was really powerful. And then we also got to see him follow this other girl into the woods. Again, an indication of other possible sinister happenings, but could be a love interest, could be, you know, a lot of different things. But clearly this girl is, she's not buying what all they're selling in this community. She's perhaps looking, you know, it could be something as innocent as looking for adventure, or it could be her, there's so many different options, and that's what I love about this episode, is it all feels so fresh. It's a familiar kind of feeling of uneasiness and like, oh man, I can't wait to watch this all go horribly wrong, but at the same time, there's a lot of complexity to it. It's not another Woodbury. It's not another Terminus. As to what it actually is, we will see, but I feel that there is something that is fundamentally different about this place, because on the surface, initially, it's very likable. Everything seems pretty smooth and reasonable. Of course, we have the whole encounter with Tara and who all was it? It was Glenn and Tara and Aiden, who's the son of Deanna and all of them. So they are going on a run, or a dry run, to go kind of check out the perimeter, show the newbies around before they go and make supply runs and all that jazz. And then of course we find that the one idiosyncrasy of the fighters is their whole, like, alpha male weird revenge thing that they have against the specific walker that killed their friend or friends. And of course we see that this is utterly pointless for these guys to insist that they keep tabs on this one walker that they can beat up on and mess around with to get them amped up to go do everything else they need to do. Like, ultimately it really takes away from their purpose, and it's just one of those unhealthy ways of perceiving the undead, who are just animate, destructive bodies, and that's all there is to it. But people assign all of these different values to them that makes the walkers a threat, as we could see by the fact that this walker not only almost killed Aiden, but almost killed Tara too. Kinda totally not okay. And so this leads to one of the major conflicts towards the end of the episode, where Aiden's really not digging the fact that Glenn clearly has all the disdain in the world for their methods, and he was told that he must do everything that they say, and, you know, we could see that Glenn would be willing to do so until it came to the point that they're just being stupid assholes, which is exactly the point that we arrived at. And thus, I'm glad that the Glenn held his own, and we got to see that Deanna came and stepped in for Rick and his entire group, declaring them to be equals, asserting that they're to be accepted in this community. Easier said than done, I'm sure, now that throats have been grabbed and punches thrown, but, you know, it's cool to see the kind of leader that Deanna seems to be again. Very smart. I like the whole backstory about how she hadn't won her re-election. She was going to be a, you know, professional poker player, which seems seems very effective. So I think it's cool that cool and a little bit scary, that she gets everybody on film, all of their different testimonies. We see the truths that are told and the lies. So there's a lot of diversity within the group as to how they approach this whole situation. And then what's going to happen too when they all pick their own houses and everybody's a little bit separated. It's kind of a scary notion because we haven't seen them, either they've all been together in the same exact building structure, or they've all been kind of trying to get back to one another and move forward as best they can, you know. So it's a little bit, it's funny how scary it is to think of them even separating like within the neighborhood, you know. But again, it's that whole, what can we really trust about Alexandria? What all don't we know? We also have the new character of Jessie, who seems pretty nice, She gave Rick a real nice looking do, I have to say. She de-grimed the Grimes quite well. But yeah, evidently she's kind of got a sort of douchebag of a husband, or at least from the way that he talked to Rick in that little encounter, like, oh, you're new in town. Hey, welcome. It was not amicable or warm in any way. You know, we just see kind of his shadow in the smoke, and that to me does not indicate that this is a friendly fellow in the shadows. Definitely perhaps more of a nemesis of some kind, but I think for as much as Deanna seems to be ready to insist that these hardened survivors be assimilated and brought in, things are going to go amiss. And it's weird too that, you know, our sympathies really by and large do lie with Rick and his group. They are the characters that we know best, that we've become so invested in, having been kind of with them in all their trials and struggles and sufferings. So we want them to succeed. But again, a little bit scary the way that Rick was so ready to, like, yeah, we'll take this place, no problem. So they could very easily turn Alexandria into their own base of operations, but the core issue is weakness versus strength. What Rick says is that they don't have that weakness in them anymore. So they can't become complacent as these people have come complacent, whether that means they're going to have their own way of staying or they're going to end up leaving later. But I really do feel like this is the dawn of a new era, and it's fascinating to think of what these hardened survivors that have been on the road for years can bring into this kind of place. You know, that Rick was saying this was ultimately the kind of place that Lori would have wanted for the family in their future. First mention of Lori that we've had in a really long time, and Carl also owned up to the fact that he had to lay her down in giving birth to Judith. So there's a lot of fascinating things that we saw in this episode. I don't know if we're gonna have a huge blowout by the next time. I think that maybe we might be waiting on that a little bit longer. There's kind of more character interactions to be had. But ultimately what's interesting too is the fact that Deanna named Rick and Michonne the constables of the city. Again, kind of going with her philosophy that who you were before matters in this age, that it provides a sense of normalcy for people to have these set roles. And we see Rick really step back into that kind of position with swagger, and even just the absence of the beard brings such a weird, nostalgic, and different element to him, because we know that he has been so irrevocably changed since the last time he looked like that underneath the forest. But yeah, I'll be curious to see how the relationship between Rick and Michonne unfolds as well, because they've always complimented one another so nicely, and I don't know. We'll see what's going on there. But so much to say. I'm running out of space on my camera even to talk about this, but thank you guys so much for watching my review. Please leave all of your thoughts in the comments. What did you think about this episode overall? I'll be more than happy to talk with you guys down there as soon as I can. So I'll be back with some Gotham and Better Call Saul and then Bates Motel next week, okay? So you guys take care. And as always, I will be back before you know it.